Tekhiin Stop is one of those poems that really stays with you. It's about a family spending the winter in a remote part of Mongolia up in the mountains. All season long, they'd watch the mountains and the wildlife. But one moment really stands out. An old ibex, the wild mountain goat, standing alone on the peak. The father explains something powerful, that when an ibex grows old, it climbs up to a high point, almost as if it's looking over its homeland one last time before it dies. The image hits hard. It's not just about the goat. It's about our connection to nature, the way life inevitably ends, and the beauty in returning to where you started for the final moment. The father's mood in the poem is reflective, almost heavy. He understands what the ibex is going through, and there's this unspoken connection between the goat's fate and human morality. As the poem ends, the family is getting ready to leave their winter home, and the father looks back at the mountain, acknowledging how much the land means to them, how it's shaped their lives. To set the tone for our discussion, let's listen to Gurbatsar's reading of the opening lines of Tekhiin Stop.
Тэр жилийн тэрний өвлийн өнтэйг яа. Tekhiin zogsool гэдэг тэр ориглын өндрийг яа.
Today I'm here with my friend Hollong, who has a special connection to Tekhiin Stop. Growing up, she spent her summers in the Mongolian countryside surrounded by the natural beauty that's captured in the poem. She's here to talk about how those experiences deepened her relationship with the poem and gave her a unique perspective on its meaning. So tell me about how you first connected with the poem Tekhiin Stop.
Every summer when I was little, I'd head to the countryside, and it was always the same routine. Summer would kick off, and off we'd go. Milking cows, running with the cattle, soaking up the sun until I developed a nice tan. During those long trips, I found comfort in traditional songs and poetry, and my favorite was Tekhiin Stop.
Why do you think Tekhiin Stop stood out to you so much?
There are three things I absolutely love about this poem: its origin, the author, and the specific interpretation or reading done by Gurbatsar. It just stuck with me for some reason.
Did you always understand it so deeply as you do now? Or did your relationship with it evolve over time?
Actually, no. I remember one time in grade school, I entered a recitation competition, and I had chosen to read Tekhiin Stop, but I didn't win. And part of me thinks it was because I hadn't really, made the poem my own yet. My teacher told me, you convey the emotions of this poem well, but they aren't your emotions. They're Gurbatsar's. And I remember thinking, what's there to understand? What the fuck? It's so obvious. It's about the sad fate of a goat. But then my dad said, let's analyze it together, and I think that changed everything.
How did breaking it down with your dad change your perspective?
Well, at first, the narrator feels joy in seeing the goat because it's such a rare sight. But by the end of the poem, he repeats the opening lines, and the emotion has shifted from joy into sadness, but also a sense of pride. This goat knows it's reaching the end of its life. But instead of burdening its pack, it musters the strength to climb to the highest point on the mountain, standing there proudly, looking over its homeland while waiting for death. And I think that image is so powerful, There's sadness, sure, but also a sense of pride in that moment.
And there's a particular line that really stands out for you, isn't there?
Yeah, it's where the narrator's dad says, "Don't graze your sheep on the mountain, you're gonna disturb the goat." And I think that really speaks volumes about how much Mongolians respect animals and nature. It's almost like a form of worship. I think it shows how attentive we are to the natural world. After all, the goat isn't gonna come down and announce its plans. Instead, it takes days of observation to truly understand its journey and what the goat is truly going through.
It sounds like respect for nature is really important in Mongolian culture.
Absolutely, and I feel really grateful because I got to experience the essence of the poem firsthand during my summers. If I had only read it in class, I don't think it would have touched me as deeply.
So when you went back to the competition,
Yeah, the next year, I entered the same competition. But this time, I got it. I realized, the goat isn't pitiful, it's proud. And that understanding changed everything. And when I recited the poem, my voice was cracking with emotion. And that time, I won first place.
And I got the first place. Тэр жилийн тэр нэгэн өвлийн өмтэйг юм. Tekhiin зогсоол гэдэг тэр өрөвлийн өндрийг юм.